and all the constituencies and stakeholders that were represented in it. Similarly, we wish to put on record as the EPG our appreciation for the work of the Convention Organizing Committee, which completed the National Dialogue Relay Race and delivered the first National Convention. Our thanks also go to NEDLAC for incubating and now housing the Secretariat of the National Dialogue. With great humility, let me also recognize the work of the EPG in advocacy, quality assuring, and guaranteeing the National Dialogue process. The 32 members of the Eminent Persons Group were appointed by His Excellency President Ramaphosa as an independent body of distinguished patriots who have agreed to volunteer their time, their knowledge, their experience to promote the national dialogue. The eminent persons receive no salary or any form of payment for doing this work, and they are not the only volunteers. There are dozens of individuals and NGOs which have volunteered thousands of hours and tons of energy and effort with lots of passion to facilitate this crucial and strategic national undertaking, the national dialogue. To all of them, we want to say thank you. The induction of the National Dialogue Steering Committee marks the precise point at which citizens take leadership of the national dialogue process, as they should. Today, in this place, on this occasion, the citizens-led nature of the national dialogue takes shape and does so concretely. The National Dialogue Steering Committee is the most representative grouping of citizens from as many sectors of our society as possible. By virtue of its representativity, this body has the moral authority, the sectoral breadth, and the societal embeddedness necessary for it to administer and to coordinate our national dialogue process. And yet, for the National Dialogue Steering Committee, representativity is never finished and clear. Instead, representativity is always under construction. This is because for a body like the Steering Committee and a process as pivotal as the national dialogue, nothing less than the most radical forms of inclusivity will ever suffice. For this reason, there must always be room and space for more sectors and more forms of representation inside of the Steering Committee. We are thinking not only of geography, but also of gender. We are thinking of the rural-urban divide, and many other such considerations. The National Dialogue Steering Committee and all the structures and process of national dialogue must therefore remain open and inclusive, as the President has already noted, even as it proceeds to carry out its national mandate. And talking about the national mandate, it's important to note that whereas the individual members of the steering committee have been nominated and delegated by specific sectors, the steering committee itself is much more than a sectoral bargaining chamber in which sectors will jostle for hegemony and supremacy. The National Dialogue Steering Committee bears the grave and strategic national responsibility of fostering and nurturing a cross-cutting, whole nation and all society approach to dialogue. The national dialogue is too important an undertaking for it to be balkanized, compartmentalized, or monopolized. It is arguably one of the most important undertakings at this point in the history of our country. 31 years since the dawn of our democracy, South Africans find themselves sitting on a heap of unfulfilled constitutional and developmental promises. In its review of 10 years of the National Development Plan, the National Planning Commission suggested that we have gone off the course of the developmental trajectory that we set for ourselves as a country in 2012. The National Planning Commission also noted that for a decade at least, our economy has not been growing, that being the root cause of many of the challenges we face as a country. These include one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world, rising poverty and inequality. Add to these the massive corruption as well as widespread violence against women and children. To the extent that national elections are a form of national dialogue, South Africans have already thrown their first salvo in the results of the 29 May 2024 elections, forcing a national coalition government. South Africans will no longer stand aside and watch. They will no longer just lament and mourn. South Africans know and demand the country they deserve, the country of which former President Nelson Mandela spoke, the country which is promised in the Constitution and in the National Development Plan. We deserve that country. South Africans will no longer allow politicians and political parties simply to do as they please once they have been elected. The induction of the National Dialogue Steering Committee is a giant step in the evolution of the national dialogue as a platform and an opportunity for South Africans to take back their country and to shape the country with their own hands and views and make sure that the next social compact is one that will represent their hopes and dreams. As guarantors and quality assurers of the national dialogue process, the EPG is satisfied that we have now reached a stage where the national dialogue proper will soon take off. The EPG is willing and able to stand side by side with the steering committee as it administers and coordinates the national dialogue. If the steering committee henceforth becomes the engine of the national dialogue, the EPG will become the fuel and the oil that will expedite the running of that engine. The EPG fully embraces its role, not only as advisor to the President as the convener of the national dialogue, but as advocates of national dialogue themselves. To this end, we as EPG members are ready to lend our individual and combined statures, individual and combined expertise, our time, our wisdom, to support and to quality assure as well as advocate for the work of National Dialogue Steering Committee. Like we did at the National Convention in August, we wish to call upon all South African citizens from all walks of life, from every sector, represented in the steering committee, as well as sectors and stakeholders who will join later. We call upon every ward, every village, every town, every city. To them we say, take ownership of the process, participate in it. And in conclusion, allow me to refer to two metaphors. One comes from the poem of celebrated English poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. His poem was titled The Mosque of Anarchy. In that poem, he rallied and urged his compatriots to rise like lions above adversity. And this at a time of great political upheaval and economic difficulties in 19th century England. So I borrow from the words of Percy Shelley, calling upon members of the steering committee in particular, but also fellow South Africans in general, to dialogue together, even as we, and I quote, rise like lions after slumber in unfathomable numbers. Shake your chains to earth like dew that in sleep had fallen on you. You are many, they are few. In church, we sing a song about Koloya Elia. Earlier, I said to the Deputy President, this is a moment of ignition. We are igniting Koloya Elia. Mara iske ya duma iye mi, ai dume itamai.
When Professor Maluleke was about to quote the poem, I asked my colleague here if they had taken breakfast, because you know poems can take a lot of data bundles to unlock, interpret, and so forth. A well-deserved morning. Let's put our hands